course it hurts. Of course it's fire. Of course it's pain. Of course it's that's hot. Y'all just shut up. I can handle it. I know what I'm doing. Oh, that hurts. Oh.
Welcome, Blind Eye friends. It's been a while. Sorry about that. We're kind of busy in the background of life. We are not trying to ignore you, and we will get to all of the messages as soon as possible. So please don't feel bad if we haven't got to all the messages. We do try to keep up, but life kind of takes over when it wants to. So anyways, today we're going to go over a couple things. It's more going to be me asking questions and wanting feedback from you guys. So anyone on the Blind Eye Movement team or Blind Eye Movement pages or just general public, if you guys see this video, please feel free to put in your inputs in the comments. And we would just love some feedback on these questions that we have. And a lot of them may be questions for pastors that are currently pastors or pastors that are no longer pastors, and you have been through the IFB system and you could actually be honest about what happened within those circles. So we would just want like true, honest comments, please and thank you. So first of all, when we have like an IFB church, who are you hiring? You know, like if you're an IFB church, what are the criteria? Like, what are you looking for in a pastor? What does their education have to be? What does their like qualifications have to be? Like how educated do they have to be? Do they have to take college courses, or do you just hire anybody off the street that, you know, says that they're a Christian and they know the Bible verses and they're, you know, an independent fundamental Baptist person? Because I remember back when I was a kid, people would get called to be a pastor or called to full-time Christian service, and that meant that they would have a job within the church. So is that all it takes, is a willing heart, and then, you know, education is like so-so? Yeah, so what is the standard? I would love to know, like, because, you know, I only went to one main IFB church my whole life, so I don't know how they did it versus someone else's independent fundamental Baptist church. You know, is there a general rule? Do they all have like meetings about it? Like, what is their threshold for hiring a pastor? I would just like to know. I would like your feedback. You know, if you experienced that process of, hey, I got called to be a pastor and now I'm going to preach at this church. What was the threshold? What was the, you know, rules, and what was the hiring process like? And also, is it just one person that gets to decide who this pastor is, or is it a team of people? Like, what is your different churches? Because I could be asking these questions and we might get 1,000 different answers, because maybe every independent fundamental Baptist church does it differently. And what we want is to grow as society. We want to grow as the IFB groups so that they can change for the better, because we know churches are still going to exist. Places of worship will still exist. And we just want them to be better. We want them to be safer, because we're never going to be able to just stop having churches. So let's do what we can to make things better and safer for men, women, and children. Okay, so what are the, you know, training, the standards, the education, but also, do you do background checks? Do people in church positions have to have a background check? Because I know if I want to go volunteer at my kid's school, I have to have a background check, I think, every time, unless you've already had like a background check within like a certain time period. You probably don't have to do another one. But like every year when I want to go volunteer for my kid's school, I got to do the background check. I send my ID in, and then I write down if I've ever had a felony or, you know, in trouble, which in a way, I don't even know how like great that system is, like how detailed it is. What can they actually see? I've never like ran a background check myself, so I don't know what they're seeing on their end. So if anyone knows, like if anyone works for whoever gets to check all the background checks, what do you get to see and how detailed is it? Does it bring up like every time you've been in court? Does it bring up any just only convictions? Because we know that there are plenty of people in the world that do bad things and they've never been convicted. And this is where I think the biggest problem for churches is that, or even just schools in general or workplaces in general, is a lot of people get away with crimes, and then a background check really does nothing if you've never been convicted. So background checks are great, and it's like a great rule of thumb. But if a pedophile has never been charged with anything or convicted, then it's really hard to protect your church against that said person because, a background check can only do so much. So I definitely would love to know if anyone has worked behind the scenes of background checks. What else does it show you? And like, how detailed is it of like that person's life? Because it would, help us decide like to push like, hey, churches should do background checks, or be like, you know what, it really isn't that effective, and what else can we do? Because like I said, we as a community, we as a human race, we need to do better, and we need to find out ways to keep our kids, women and children all safe within the places that we work and worship and just be in general. So moving on, so that was number one. Number two would be, do the churches intentionally move pastors from one church to another church because of behavior? Mainly bad behavior. Like, if they get caught doing something illegal or immoral, do churches purposely move those people to other churches and just allow them to preach and teach and volunteer in that next church, knowing that they did something wrong? Like, is that just like, I know a lot of people who have said that that has happened, but that is like from church members and victims' perspectives of like, yeah, so-and-so was able to do all these bad things to me, and they just moved him to another church. But I want to hear from like, okay, staff, like especially former staff that is actually going to tell the truth, like people who really were in the thick of it, and now they're out and they want to tell us the truth about like what happened, what actually happens behind the scenes in a church. When you find out a pastor does something super inappropriate, is that like the first thing you guys think of is like, hey, we gotta like scooch this person out of our church so they don't make us look bad, and then we can save more souls? Like, is that what actually happens behind the scenes? I would love to hear from like an actual pastor or secretary or whoever, was on staff to like really know like, how does that go behind the scenes? Because I was a kid when all that stuff was going down. So my perspective is like, yes, it's true. They definitely do that because of how many times some random camp meeting or some random end of the church service, everyone's up there like crying, and like this family's like, we're all called to Pennsylvania because, Jesus just called us one random day in the middle of the week, like on a Wednesday night, the Lord called us to another church. And, we were all like, oh my God, they're following the Lord, and like they're just risking their whole future and moving their entire family to Pennsylvania from Michigan. And, we all thought it was like this magical spiritual thing, like an awakening. And I'm just called to this church for whatever reason. But, I wonder how many times, like if there was like a collective, like if we could count how many times that happened where they said they were called spiritually to do something, but really behind the scenes, it was orchestrated because they got caught doing something, because a lot of times it seemed like there was a rumor going around simultaneously while these people got called away to do something else. So I would love real feedback from someone that actually went through that in the background, someone that actually helped decide that stuff. My computer fan is doing something annoying. I really hate that, so please hold. Okay, so I kind of skipped a part of point one as I was looking. Like, who are you hiring? And, is there a voting system? Is there just one person hiring that person? And then the training, the standards, education, do you do background checks? Yada, yada. So letter D for that, I had, if a pastor does something wrong, illegal, what are the policies? And then with like members too, like someone that goes to the church or someone that's working on the staff, what are the policies for your individual church? And because, like I said, like there's endless amounts of IFB churches. So whoever's watching this, if we can kind of work together and, give us your feedback, like what does your church do? Because it might not be the same. Especially because I was just looking up like how many IFB churches are there in the world. And there was not a definite number because it said like independent fundamental Baptist churches are independent and they, are self-run and self-regulated. Although probably not well. So they don't have like a database that they all have to like plug into and be like, okay, we exist, and have like a higher authority than them. versus maybe some other religions. I don't know if they're all connected to one. I don't know if other religions have like a headquarters. And that's basically what it was saying, was like, you know, if you have a headquarters and then you all have to be accountable to this one place, you would be like, okay, we exist. This is my blah, blah. These are my memberships, blah, blah, blah. I don't know how it all works. But it's a little scarier if you think about that, because then it's like, you don't have to have a said policy for illegal things or immoral things in your church if you don't have someone that you have to, you know, be accountable to. So if it's all self-run and self-regulated, that means they could technically make up whatever rules they wanted, which is great. I love freedom. Freedom is awesome. I love freedom to choose things. I love having rights. I love freedom. You know, that's like, America's great for freedom. But if you abuse the freedoms that you have, then that's when we have new laws and we have to pass new rules. And like, that's why we're trying to go to our governments about like statute of limitations. Now we want to change that because someone abused their right to teach a child. Someone abused their right to be a pastor. Someone abused their right to be alone with a child, you know, and to have influence over that child. Like, that is a privilege. To get to teach a child, to get to birth a child is a privilege. To be a parent is a privilege. And sadly, parents abuse that privilege, pastors abuse the privilege, and just members of churches and schools, and, you know, obviously in the workplace. There's many people who abuse the rights and the privileges that we have and the freedoms that we have. And then it makes us have to like lock it down and change, you know, things. And there wasn't many stop signs back in the day, but then people kept crashing. So it's like, then we had to have more stop signs and more stoplights and more rules. And yes, it sucks, but something's got to be done. So if we want more freedom, we have to like actually use the freedoms we have for good and not for bad. So people, if you don't like more laws and more rules, we got to do better. Okay. Anyway, side tangent down on letter D. Okay. My next point was, has there been any changes within the IFB schools and colleges to help prevent SA, or are they the same? So if anyone's been to colleges, you know, back in the day, I don't know, let's say a decade ago, to now, you know, if you've like, maybe you attended the colleges and now you're teaching it, or maybe you attended for a little bit and then went back, like, what do you guys think about colleges in general? Maybe you've been a part of one for many years and you can watch it evolve into something new. And yeah, because, so our movement in general, we're basically zeroing in on IFB churches and sexual abuse, like those two things together. And I know that sexual abuse can be anywhere and everywhere, and that really sucks. But like, while we are doing what we're doing, hopefully other people can hear this and learn about it and be aware of it and just have open eyes and not blind eyes to the situation, that, you know, how much it happens and how scary it can be. Hopefully more parents will be aware as well and help protect their children. So we understand it's bigger than just IFB, but it's just what we can focus on right now, like what we can actually handle. And we can barely handle that. Like, every day we see more and more churches being accused of having SA in their churches, and it's daunting. It's like, oh my gosh, like, I don't know, like the numbers just keep growing, and it's really sad. And sometimes it's like, I don't even know how to tackle this because it's huge. It'd be different if it was just one church and like that church needed to be shut down or just, you know, restaffed. But it's not. It's sadly not just one church. It's not just one problem. It's not just one generation. It's a lot. So yeah. So if anyone knows, like in present day, do you think IFB churches and colleges and schools have changed at all for the better to help with SA and sexual abuse? Or do you think it's just the same? Are they still getting away with it exactly the same as they did 10 years ago or 20 years ago or back in the 70s? Because we have cases, you know, people are talking about it from the 70s. So yeah, that's basically my question for that. Have they changed, or are they the same? Has there been anyone who attended recently that could tell us how they operate? So I guess 3 and 4 are basically kind of the same, but yeah, like, have you attended a college or a church or school in the last couple years, more recent days, and are they better? I gotta get my dog. Okay, sorry about that. I had to get the dog. It was barking. Or he was barking. So anyways, where was I? So basically my point 3 and 4 were kind of the same. Like, has there been any changes to IFB schools and colleges to help prevent the SA, or are they the same? And then my number 4 was, has there been anyone who attended it recently that could tell us how they operate? So, I mean, yeah, have there been any changes and, like, what recently? Because I guess I meant, like, zero in on, like, very recent. Has anything changed? Is it still the same? Like, or really my bigger question for number 4 is, like, how do the IFB colleges operate? Because I feel like it's at the college level where something has to be happening to train these pastors, excuse me, puppy, train the pastors to know how to get away with SA. Like, I don't know if it's just, like, something in nature that's doing it. Like, is it just, they're just born that way to become a pedophile and know how to get away with it? Like serial killers, I guess. Like, is that just born? Is it nature? Is it nurture? And then is our colleges, and I guess not mine anymore, but is the IFB colleges doing something? Sorry, my dog keeps walking over my stand, so it's just shaking the camera everywhere. Anyways, are the colleges doing something that helps the pastors and leaders and other ladies in the church get away with sexual abuse? Or are they just naturally like that and just use the IFB system as a way to get to younger kids or teenagers or what have you? Like, is it just the perfect breeding ground and it's just easier for them to get away with it? Is it our teachings that lead people to not come forward? Because I do think that's a huge part of it. So I'm just curious, like, if anyone, attended recently to these colleges or like a strict Baptist school, how do they operate? And are they teaching things that you think is part of the cause or is a huge factor in people getting away with SA? Because that's, like, the biggest thing is, like, it'd be different if, a sexual abuse case happens and then right away it's dealt with. So there is only one victim. You know what I mean? Like, instead of it happens and then a couple of years later happens again, or maybe a few months later happens again, and then one person, whether male or female, has many, many victims on their case, like, within the case. And, like, how is that happening? And how did that happen so many times to where so many perpetrators have several victims? Like, it doesn't even make sense. Like, why did they let that happen? And what is it? What is the actual cause? Is it just these people just happen to be born that way to be an offender and to be a perpetrator of these crimes? Or is it just the perfect breeding ground so that it just, like, encourages it in a way? Like, maybe someone wasn't really interested in children, but because the environment was like, hey, kids submit, kids don't talk back, kids can't tell on grown-ups, like, kids can't complain. Was it just, like, the perfect situation that just happened to be like, oh, well, we need a youth pastor to go away on all these youth camp trips, so they're spending nights with these teenagers with no parents around, and, maybe not great, like, supervisors, because maybe it's just, like, other young, like, what do they call them? Like a camp counselor, like, they got little camp counselors or whatever, which, come to think of it, why did they call them a camp counselor when they're not counseling anything? They're a camp counselor back in my day meant like the, I can't think of the word, not a supervisor, but like not a witness, like, what do they call them? A chaperone. There you go. Like a chaperone. Because if they've got, like, young, just freshly graduated chaperones going on, like, the teen trips or something, then they're definitely not going to stand up to the youth pastor either, because they probably just left his group as a teenager and now they're in college, and, it's like the same rules, and you're never supposed to, like, tell on pastors or, confront them or anything like that. You don't talk back to your parents, you don't come forward with things or your feelings. It's kind of like if you come forward in church, it's like you can go pray in the front of the church, you know, like kneel down, you pray, you cry, you confess some sins. But I feel like it was never taught to like you go confront the people that are doing wrong. You know, I don't know. It's more like you confess when you're wrong, basically. I don't know. That's just my perspective. But number 5. Anyone attends schools, colleges that could give us feedback on why SA seems to go on unchecked. Any pastors out there willing to clue us in? So, yeah, if you're a pastor or leader, what do you think is making it go on unchecked? And why does it keep happening to several victims at a time? And what do you think it is? Do you think it's the church environment? Do you think it's the teachings? Like, I am so curious to know, like, are there actual lessons on, like, hey, this is how you get away with SA? And obviously they wouldn't say those words, but, like, hey, this is how you control children, or this is how you control the women, or this is how you can be, like, the alpha leader and get away with everything. Like, I don't know. Like, I would be so curious. And maybe I need to, like, I don't really have time, but I kind of want to, like, go back and, like, start listening to the preaching. But then it's, like, it just, you know, gives me anxiety. Having to suffer through all the teachings, and then, you know, I guess I could probably answer my own question, because they'll probably say the quiet parts out loud, because they usually did, you know. And it's just like, I kind of want to know from the pastors' perspectives, like ex-pastors, like former pastors, like what was the perspective behind the scenes, like being on staff, like back in the rooms of when you all talked about it. Like if you found out a guy was alone with a girl all the time, like a young girl, a minor, would y'all be like high-fiving? Would it be like, that is not okay? Would your, you know, father figure blood boil? Would you even care? Like, that's kind of what I want to know. Like, I want to hear from, like, people that actually went through it, people that actually saw a situation like that. Like, when you, as a staff member, caught someone, or when someone on staff caught someone, or someone came forward, what have you, if you knew of a situation and someone was sexually abused in your church, what went down? What were the policies that you followed? Did you even have any? Or was it like you prayed about it and then you guys just followed your heart? You know, like, did you just gather around like, okay, we have to have a prayer meeting, like emergency prayer meeting. We got to figure out where this pastor can go now because he screwed up, or where this church member can go because they screwed up. Would there even be consequences? Or would you guys just be like a PR team and you're just like, okay, so how do we manage how we look as a church, and how do we manage what we're going to talk about on Sunday to kind of deflect what happened? Because a lot of times there'd be like random announcements and be like, what are they talking about? Because maybe we wouldn't know the real story, but they're trying to like make something up on Sunday of like, hey, there was a situation and this brother needs prayer. He stumbled. And we're like, what are you talking about? But really it was like he sexually abused somebody and he got caught. So yeah, I would like to know in the comments, what do you guys all think that have been through it, have seen that? And if it was in recent years, were there actual better policies that were followed? Were there any consequences? And did you get the police involved? Or is it still like, let's pray for him, he will be forgiven, he will just like do a different job instead of like driving the bus, he's now going to be in the nursery, which is so much worse. But like, I feel like those are the kind of things he would do. Like, oh, you messed up here? Well, that's fine. We'll just go over here and do, you know, run like VBS, like Vacation Bible School. Like you can run that for us. Or, hey, you can do the offering plates or whatever, you know, like they'll just move you to a different like job and like demote you or promote you to something else so that like, oh, nobody has to talk about whatever happened over here. Yeah. So those are the things I kind of want answered. So I'm just asking like a billion questions. My final number 6 question is probably something I've already asked. Does anyone think it is the general teachings and beliefs that breed abuse being tolerated? If so, how? And if no, what else is a factor? I feel like I'm being a teacher. If true, do this. If false, do this. But literally, yeah. So what do you all think it is? And obviously, anyone can comment and give me your opinions, because like I just think it's gonna take an entire generation full of people to try to change the world, basically. And maybe we never will fully change the world, but just like helping one person at a time counts, I feel like. So if we can prevent like one person from being abused because we called out a church and we warned the parents like, hey, this church is accused of doing these things, keep an eye on your kids, because like that could be as simple as it is we call it out when we find out and we say it out loud. Say the quiet parts out loud now, because it didn't save us being quiet when we were kids. So for my, last point, which I kind of already went over, do you think it's the teachings? Do you think it's just great breeding ground for sexual abuse? Do you think it is, teachings from the Bible that create the environment that makes us, too submissive and too quiet and too obedient, to where there has to be some sort of like a better compromise on that? Like, you can be respectful, but also stand up for yourself. You can have some sort of rights as a child without overrunning your parents. And I think, this generation, it is really difficult, because we're all, like me personally, I went from, 90s style of parenting, the way I grew up, and then to now I'm a more softer parent and I listen to everything my kids say, but then they do run over me sometimes and they can be very spoiled. So no offense, kids, but it's just like the different ways, it's like the non-spanking generation, the, when all of us IFBers came from, parents could beat your kids. And like, if you told someone, they'd be like, pray about it and do better so you don't get spanked, like it's so different. And I won't get into the debates about all that, but it's just such a different time. And I'm just very curious in your guys' opinions, like what could, pastors do differently now to help prevent that? Like, how can they teach the teachings they want to teach? How can they worship whatever God they want to worship, but keep it a safe environment for children? Because if a pastor, maybe there's some bright-eyed, bushy-tailed pastors that just got the calling that they're going to be in full-time Christian service, and they're like, hey, I want to find a church to run and lead and bring everybody to Christ. Well, how can they do that without allowing pedophiles to run amok in the church? How can they do that without having 10 years from now all these women and children, and well, boys too, I don't know how to describe it. I always say women and children, like the first ones on the ship to get off, first women and children. It's just like a habit of saying that. But how can we make it so in 10 years from now, there's not a huge wave of people coming forward about SA? Like, how can we change that? And if you are like the new bright pastor ready to preach church, can you please do your research on how to have policies to prevent it, how to have policies to deal with it once it happens, once someone comes forward? Like, no more brushing it under the rugs. Let's burn all the rugs, as a matter of fact, in the churches. Like, let's have no more rugs to throw things under. Let's not have any more cover-ups or pastors moving from one church to another to just keep doing the same thing over and over again. All right, guys. Well, thank you for listening to all my questions. I hope you have some feedback for us on what you guys think, whether you're just general public or a victim of SA or a former pastor or a current one that wants to do better. Please give us your feedback and let us know what you think. Bye.